Welcome to the Seize the Day weekly podcast, your connection to all things cruising, powered by Travel with Brigetta.
I'm Julie Williams, along with Karla Mesa on the Seize the Day podcast, powered by Travel with Brigetta. I think since norovirus, a lot of people are concerned about getting sick on a cruise ship. So today we're going to share 10 ways to avoid getting sick on a cruise ship, no matter what kind of sickness, whether it's a virus or even seasickness, and what to do if you do get sick. Karla, let's start with how to avoid getting sick, and then we can move on to what to do if you do get sick, okay? What's your first tip?
So my first tip is going to be actually before you're on the ship. I would say that whole maybe 7 days, a week before, being very cautious and preventative of getting sick and, picking up any germs, making sure you're washing your hands really well after everything that you do with soap and water and using hand sanitizer. One of my tips is my best tips that I do anytime I travel, period, is a week before. I'm also taking like a daily vitamin C. I'm not a daily vitamin person, so if that's already part of your regimen, like that's great. But especially for people that aren't, I would start doing that a good 7 days before, just to really boost your immune system. My favorite is just like the emergency packets that you can just, mix into your water. And those are super easy. I have taken like the actual vitamins, but unless I've taken it after like a huge meal or something, I always end up a little queasy. So they're not my favorite, but emergency packets are, and I take them on the ship as well. That's a big thing for me. 7 days before, hopefully during, when I remember, it's not as important, but then afterwards as well. That's my aftercare.
They also say now that K2D3 is even better for the immune system. I'm not saying don't take C, but you might want to add K2D3 because that particularly that was very effective against COVID. And, so, you might want to add that too. Let me ask you this, Karla. If I were to walk up like at check-in for my cruise and I have a cold, are they going to let me on the ship?
Yes. They're going to let you on the ship. Things aren't as strict as they were before where, you have to just show up with your negative test and, unless you're like very visibly like, can't stop coughing in the line or, sneezing or just, runny and stuff. They really can't tell you anything. It's one of those things that's almost like common courtesy. Like if you're sick and you're contagious, are you really going to make the decision to, risk everyone else getting sick? So it's definitely something you have to think about. Like I said, it's not, they don't have someone there picking out who shouldn't or should come on board based on, symptoms, but it's definitely something to think about for yourself. And
now, I haven't been on a cruise for a year, but in 2020 when I went, and then last year when I went, they would ask you and monitor to make sure you washed your hands as you're going into like the dining room and the buffet and things like that. Because I had a doctor tell me the 10 most germy things on your body are your fingers. So they say, to really wash your hands well. What do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, that is first and foremost. You want to make sure you're washing your hands well every time you do anything. Every time you use the restroom or you're at the buffet, you're handling utensils that other people have. Even just being out by the pool deck, going from one seat to another, or using the elevators, pressing buttons. It's it's small things you don't think about,
right?
But you walk into your room, I would wash your hands. Leaving your room, I would wash your hands, just anytime you have the opportunity to. And then with that being said, you might not have it as often as you'd like. You want to make sure you avoid, touching your face, touching your mouth. If you do need to, touch your nose, make sure you're using a tissue, maybe keep some hand sanitizer on you, because that's the most common way viruses enter our bodies, through our eyes, our nose, our mouth. So that's what you definitely want to avoid, all those things. You want to think tell yourself you have blue dye on your fingers. You don't want to get blue dye on your face.
I had trouble not rubbing my eyes, you know. I don't know. It's like maybe they get dry from the
From the
wind.
sun rays, yes. They
Yeah, because I just rub them all the time, and that is definitely not good. And then one of the things I do is they have these little plastic things that have soap. You know, think about something you would pull a Post-it tab out of, right? They have
do.
those
Oh,
with soap strips.
yes.
So
Mhm.
I think it has like 10 soap strips in it. So you could throw it in your pocket, your purse, whatever. And then you always have it with you. So really, even if you're out on an excursion, because on the ship, there's always somewhere to wash your hands. But if you're out on an excursion or something and you have your water bottle and you have your little soap thing, you know, you can wash your hands anywhere.
Yeah, that's a great idea. They also make, travel friendly size like wet wipes or even Clorox wipes. That's another great one. I would say that's another tip as far as your actual cabin. I mean, the crew does a great job of cleaning up, and I've never had an experience where I walk into a cabin that's wasn't that was unkept, but that's still an individual person or two that cleaned your cabin that you haven't been exposed to with different immune systems. So I would still give a wipe down to everything, door handles, the sink, the desk,
Telephone,
the lamps, the telephone. Yes, exactly, all those
anything you're going to touch.
you don't even think about it, how many times you touch the light switch. Little
Yeah,
things.
right. And I know, like when they have an outbreak and like during COVID and big norovirus outbreaks and stuff, they disinfected every room. Okay.
Right.
But do we know, between people, we don't know that they may have cleaned it, but we don't know that they disinfected the rooms. We don't know that they wiped things down with the alcohol wipes.
There is a difference, definitely.
And then another idea is if you're going to the buffet, the hands, remember, the fingers are the most germy parts of our body. And we're grabbing all of these serving utensils that this person and that person and that person and that person just held on to. And we don't know how clean they are, right? So, some people have suggested perhaps bring like disposable gloves, which, I mean, you might get some funny looks, but that doesn't bother me.
Right. I mean, they're not going to tell you to stop.
Exactly. And so then you just, you go through the buffet line and all you have to do is take those gloves off and throw them away. They're cheap, so bring enough for every meal, and then you just take them off, and then, you can just eat normally and not worry about having picked anything up from the buffet.
Yeah, Stefan, that's what I was going to say. I'm glad you mentioned, throwing them away immediately, because that's what we're trying to avoid, is keeping the germs with us. We want to get rid of them immediately.
Right.
And I would also say for, anyone like immunocompromised as well, like, you want to avoid maybe the busiest times you want to avoid going into the busier areas of the ship at the busiest times. Like, of course, you're going to want to hit the buffet. But, if you're going in for breakfast, you might want to be part of the very early crowd, between maybe 7 and 8, or you're going to want to go a little later, maybe after like 10 a.m. or
Exactly. And just basically stay away from crowds, like crowded elevators.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I would also bring, and this is if I'm immunocompromised, if I feel like I'm getting something or if there's an outbreak, I don't worry about it all the time, but I'd bring something like a disinfectant wipe, an alcohol wipe, to wipe the elevator buttons before pressing them as well. All right, and the other thing I've done before is I've used my elbow.
Oh, yeah, I do that all the time. Or I'll use like my knuckle.
That's right.
I was going to say too, and you know what? A lot of the times, for me personally, and maybe if you have the capability of it, I end up using the stairs a lot of the time because I don't have the patience to wait for elevators. But I would still take in consideration if you're holding onto the rails. Make sure you're thinking about that as well.
Good point. I didn't even think about that. I thought about taking the stairs, which I normally do because I figure I'm going to get all my steps in, right? And because you might get your heart rate up, but you feel good after you did the stairs, and is often quicker than the elevator.
It
But
can be
there are a lot of
quicker,
people, obviously, there are people who have trouble walking that
yeah.
need to take the elevator all the time.
Right, correct. And sometimes, they're in different areas of the ship. So sometimes it makes more sense. Like, I need to be over here. I'm going to have to walk the opposite way to get the elevator. And, it just makes more sense to go down the stairs.
Yes, and also if you are if you have mobility issues, if maybe you need a walker or you just like for me on my last cruise, I was having a little bit of a hip problem. It's fine now, but it was intermittently making it difficult to walk. Like one time going all the way down the pier into the port when I got off the ship, it was kind of difficult. You might want to talk to your travel agent about where to put your cabin so maybe you're closer to the elevators or closer to the places that you'll tend to frequent.
Yes, that we will definitely go over in another episode. Choosing your cabin is very you have a lot of reasons to why you would choose a certain cabin.
Right, right. Hey, thank you for joining us on the Seas Today podcast today, powered by Travel with Brigitta. If you're finding our content valuable, please join the family by subscribing and share this with a friend. And of course, we welcome your feedback. So feel free to leave a comment below. Karla, here's a travel agent question for you. How can we avoid getting seasick? All those other things are going to help, like with viruses and immune, but seasick is a totally different animal.
Right. So there are a lot of over-the-counter, like Dramamine, Bonine, different items that you can take, and I would definitely recommend them. There's a reason that they're the most popular. The Dramamine does actually now have a non-drowsy version, and I do actually like it. One thing I want to point out to people, though, that not a lot of people pay attention to, or they just choose to completely avoid or ignore, is that you are not supposed to be drinking alcohol when you are taking Dramamine.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
It will affect how you feel. You will not. It will be a very different kind of drunk.
Right.
And a lot faster. So you definitely want to keep that in mind. And for that reason, one of my favorites, it's called Motion Ease. It's pretty much an oil, a combination of different essential oils. It has chamomile, and it has myrrh, it has peppermint oil, it has lavender, and it's non-toxic. It's, there's no actual drugs or active ingredient in it, which makes it safe for kids of any age.
Wow.
Which is really nice. Yes. Very nice. You just you put drops behind your ears, you put it on your wrist. Sometimes you can also, what I like to do is I'll actually put it into like a few cotton balls and just keep that in a little Ziploc bag. And then you just breathe it in, if you will.
Exactly. Inhale it, smell it.
Yes.
That's enough to very quickly get it to your system. About peppermint oil, about oils, one of the things I do, and I don't really have seasickness on a cruise ship unless it's really, really, really bad. But it's on like other excursion boats, like a large tour boat or something where I'll really feel it. And I bring peppermint essential oil beadlets. And as far as I know, there's only one company that has them. It's called doTERRA. I get them on Amazon.
Okay, I have doTERRA.
And they're peppermint beadlets, and they're tiny little gel beadlets. They're dinky. You start with one. More intense than Altoids, but I eat it. And that helps actually with both headaches, peppermint oil does, and also the stomach with some other nausea, not related to seasickness. I've found that I was on a prescription medication for nausea that they actually give chemo patients, and the peppermint essential oil beadlets worked better.
Wow. Yeah, sometimes, our body just doesn't take actual, drugs while we're already in that kind of, our body's already in that motion of like, we're not taking anything and we just want everything to come out. Another great one is, just sometimes just a ginger ale. One popular one that even crew members will recommend is a green apple. Trying to get down a green apple, the nutrients are different than than the red apples, and something about like the acidity will help break everything down and calm your stomach.
And those
And
are pretty much available all over the cruise ship 24/7.
right. And I would say if you know that you will get sick, there are some people that do it more of as a preventative. There are some people that know I am absolutely going to get sick. I have to do everything. First day, first time at the buffet, grab a few. They have no issue with that at all. Get 4 or 5, have them in your cabin already, ready for when you meet them. If you have multiple people that you're worried about as well, that's nice to have just a few on hand already. I would also say that a huge advantage to picking your own cabin is deciding on one that will prevent seasickness. Where you are on the boat definitely matters. It can make a difference, especially if you're, easily susceptible to it.
So where would you say to go?
So I would say the best is going to be midship, right in the center, and more than likely in the middle of like the actual decks. It'll be very dependent on why you get seasickness. If it's purely the motion, then I would say midship, middle decks. If it's a visual thing, then I would actually recommend an even lower deck and something with a window, because then you are constantly seeing the water line. And that's another great thing that helps prevent or, relieve seasickness, is looking out into the horizon and seeing where that water line meets the sky. It actually resets your equilibrium.
Wow. So what about being in a balcony cabin? Because then you get fresh air if you want to.
Yeah, and that was the next thing I was going to say. And if you can take it a step further and have a balcony, and when that fresh air hitting you helps a lot as well. It does. So I was going to say, if you, if you're somewhere else on the ship and it's hitting you, that's your best bet. Is try to get one to the upper decks, get some fresh air, and again, look out into that horizon, just kind of focus, and that'll help as well.
Yeah, that makes sense, because when I was younger, I used to get car sick all the time, and it helps to sit in the front seat for some reason, but also to open a window makes a big difference. So I think there's a lot to, don't know why, but there's a lot to say for getting fresh air. I've also used the patches for my honeymoon. My very first cruise, I was afraid I might get seasick, like most people are for their first cruise. They don't know how they're going to be on it. I had no idea what to expect. And this is before I knew anybody who had ever been on a cruise. And so I had nobody to ask. Of course, we didn't have the internet back then. But I put one of those patches on, and this is my honeymoon, right? I put one of those patches on in the morning before I flew to Miami, okay, to get on the ship, and pretty much slept on the plane and laid down and went to sleep as soon as I got to the cabin. And it was like, I cannot spend my honeymoon asleep. I'm not going to sleep through my first cruise in my honeymoon. So I took the patch off, and I really didn't get sick at all. But that's one thing. I don't know if they make the patches that are non-drowsy, because this was a long time ago. But
no. I just even seeing non-drowsy Dramamine in the last like 2-3 years was new for me. But I would say a good point that you brought up is, especially if you haven't tried these things before, you should try them beforehand. A good 2-3 weeks. Maybe you might not have a scenario where you would be, feeling motion sickness or something, but even for like a car ride, like you said, maybe taking out and going by a windy road that you know of or something. If you're taking the drowsy kind, don't be the driver, but you definitely want to have an idea of how it's going to affect you, because you don't want to ruin your cruise either. Like you said, I've had, it wasn't a similar experience necessarily, but I got sick the morning of leaving a cruise. Like the whole day before was a great day, no big deal. Morning of, I can barely breathe out of my nose. I'm just not doing well. I bought Robitussin, and I think I drank half the bottle after boarding, and I slept for like 2 days straight. I missed
That's
the
not
whole.
recommended, by the way. We don't
No, no,
recommend
no, no,
it.
no, no, no. This, and I was like a teenager doing this as well. This was a
Yeah.
very, very long time ago. It was
Yes.
probably one of my first cruises that I wasn't like a child. So I was like, no, this can't happen. And but that's how I remember the cruise. I just remember being in bed. Like I remember that I was better by the time we had port days, but I did not get to experience the ship because I
And
was
even if it's not about being in a situation beforehand where you might get car sick or seasick or motion sick of some kind, you will know if it makes you too drowsy or how your body responds to certain medications. If they just don't settle well with you for some reason, you have time to try something else.
right.
So if you haven't ever taken anything, it's a good idea. Oh, and also they have those uh, acupressure bands that you can put on.
Different.
And I bought some before my last cruise, kind of as a just in case, because I was having nausea issues anyway from a medication I was taking. So I bought them. I could not figure out, didn't come with instructions. I could not figure out how to use them. I finally threw them away.
Oh,
I didn't even recharge them. I just threw them away and saw, forget this. I hear that they work well, but make sure you learn how to put them on first.
yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So dehydration can make seasickness a lot worse and weaken
Yes.
your immune system as well. So we're talking coffee and not drinking enough water can be caffeine, I should say, not just
I was
coffee.
gonna say caffeine, because sodas as well. I mean,
Yeah,
even just the drinks that are high in sugar. Also, the fresh juices are great, and they're great to an extent, but it's a lot. It's very high in sugar. Even if it's natural sugar, it's still going to deplete your hydration. So yeah, that's a definite one. Definitely. I always recommend on these ships to take a reusable water bottle, something like,
right.
Hydro Flask or something with a lid, and it's going to keep it cold, that you're isn't too heavy, that you're comfortable, walking around with, or having, in a small backpack or something, because you definitely want to stay hydrated on these ships. I mean, you're on a vacation, you're doing things that are out of your norm, you're eating, drinking out of your normal, maybe even the physical activity with getting your steps in is out of your normal. So
Right.
you need to be intaking water that is out of your normal as well.
Yes. And if you're somebody who doesn't usually drink, even if you're someone who does, but people who don't also drink a lot on cruise ships. It's just the atmosphere, right?
Right.
Alcohol is very dehydrating and it does not help you at all when it comes to motion sickness.
No, definitely not. You might not, feel as terrible right away, but you might feel a lot worse later.
Yeah. And
And
another thing is,
that's another point too. When, as long as if you can't avoid it, if you're trying everything and you just still can't avoid, the nausea or the actual, act of having to get everything out, you really, really want to stay hydrated, because if you have, if your body is trying to get things out that's not even there, it's gonna be painful. And at
yeah,
least having some water in you helps a lot.
and avoid greasy, spicy, and heavy meals. Now, a lot of times, I mean, these are fabulous meals, right? Especially on a cruise ship. Um, but if you tend to be motion sick, you might want to go light on them. And the cruise lines are so good at custom making whatever. It's amazing with all the people they serve and how good the food is that they can actually customize a meal for you, whether it's food allergies or, certain needs. I mean, they're so helpful, especially if you let them know the day before. But,
Yes.
sometimes you can't, but they'll still accommodate you the best they can.
Right. And they're there for you. They understand, they see it on a daily basis. So they have a lot of empathy for that.
Right. Right. So, and then also one of the things that you should do is keep your eyes open. Okay. Like, and ears, because sometimes you may not hear it, but over the, if there's a breakout of a contagious virus like norovirus, which by the way, let me put people at ease here. There are infinitely more norovirus cases off cruise ships than there are on cruise ships. But because everyone's in such close quarters, if somebody gets it, they're at the buffet using the same utensils or whatever, because it is highly contagious. So if there is a norovirus outbreak, I would say have these things with you, whether you're worried about getting sick or immunocompromised or not, and then switch into sanitation gear and um, listen to the overhead announcements, and maybe they'll put it in their whatever they call like the princess patter or whatever their daily thing is, and mention it to you on the app. They'll let you know, but keep in mind, if there is an outbreak, that's when you need to buckle down,
Yeah.
whether you are, no matter how immunocompromised you are.
Yes, and they will. They'll let you know about that. But like, even as you said, just to keep your eyes open too. If, like I said earlier, if someone was in line, maybe had a mild cough or something, they're not going to say something to you. But maybe you notice that maybe it's gotten worse, and maybe you're like, yeah, I'm not gonna go. Maybe they just got up from the bar. It's the only seat available, and you're like, maybe not. Wasn't meant to be. Go somewhere else.
That's right. Oh, and one other thing as far as preparing not to get sick is make sure you get plenty of sleep. It's so easy to stay up late till 2 a.m. dancing and get up at 6 o'clock for the excursion or whatever. Just make sure you get plenty of sleep, because especially if there's an outbreak, that is huge for your immune system. Even one night of bad sleep can compromise your immune system. So, people don't take sleep as seriously as they should in regular life. We're always go, go, go. And on a cruise ship, that's magnified.
Yes.
Okay, so Karla, if we do get sick, okay, not seasick, but let's say we get a virus, a norovirus, or some kind of a stomach virus or something, what do we do then?
So I would say, I want to say all cruise ships, but let's say most cruise ships do have a medical center and do have medical staff that can help you. I would recommend staying in your cabin and calling them, and they will come to you.
Mhm.
Or you can go to them, but I would say that would just depend on like the severity of how you feel and the urgency rate you feel you need care.
Right.
Just because if it is something where there are multiple people, I'm the type of person that I don't want to go just put myself in a room with more sick people.
Exactly. And you don't want to go to the medical center through the elevator where there's 100 other people.
Right. And then, and you're trying to get there and you're just visibly, and we want to be considerate to the rest of the passengers. Right.
Right. And don't wait. Do it right away. I mean, if the medical center is going to want to know your symptoms, like, for
Yes.
example, diarrhea, vomiting, or fever, then they definitely will want you to let them know. And I know this makes you maybe not want to call them, but they might make you self-isolate in the cabin. And then that's mandatory. You don't have a choice. It's not a suggestion. But they do room service and medical care, for sick passengers who are quarantined in their cabins. And it's so important. I mean, I myself would be tempted not to call them because I don't want to be quarantined. But the thing is that it's so important. You really need to.
Exactly. Like I said, we want to be, considerate of all passengers. And even if you think like, oh, it's not that bad, I'm still okay. Or like, I know it's not motion sickness, I just like caught something. You still want to call them and let them know, because there could be 200 other people on the ship that are thinking the same thing. Oh, it's no big deal. And then you don't know that there was some sort of outbreak until everyone gets off and it starts spreading around, and you have no idea where it even came from because those people didn't say anything.
Right. Also, one of the things to think about is a lot of people bring, like I do, a little first aid kit. And
Mhm.
if there's any medications I might need, like anti-nausea medication, I was doing just because of the medication I was on. So anything like that, the peppermint beadlets, I carry those in my purse just in case. You just never know, right? So any over-the-counter things that you bring, like the peppermint beadlets, the acetaminophen, the fever reducer, the cold remedies, anti-diarrheals, or whatever, you want to use them as directed, not too much, but still, if it's not just a seasickness thing, you've got to inform the ship's doctor. And I would go a step further and say, talk to the medical center before you take it, because you might have some sort of a cold remedy with you, but they have a better one. But once you've taken yours, you can't use the better one. So I would definitely, if it's bad enough to call for help, then I would say hold off on the meds until you talk to them.
Yes, because I will say that unless you have travel insurance that, has a medical coverage, this is not free of charge. This
Right.
will be billed to you completely separate in their own billing and pricing system.
Right.
So
Right.
it's definitely not necessarily the lightest decision to make. But again, we want to be, considerate to the rest of the ship, the rest of the passengers, and do what's right.
Yeah. Now, I'm not positive about this, but I think that if you're confined to your cabin, that they probably won't charge for the room service. That's just my guess. I can't imagine they would.
That definitely depends on the ship, because there are even some itineraries where room service is covered anyway. And I do believe when it is like a requirement, not like you have the option to self isolate, that it is covered. And then usually too, they do usually allow, like, if you have you have someone else on the ship with you or something, that can definitely bring you food and.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Is there anything else you'd like to add about preventing getting sick, viruses, or seasickness, or what to do if you are sick on the ship?
I would just, like I said, my number one thing is, we don't know who's all going to be on the ship, but whatever you can do beforehand to prevent, like I said, taking your vitamin C, zinc, any other vitamins that, you have in your regimen to prevent sickness, and really being hydrated, not just water, but taking electrolytes, maybe even packing yourself some of those little electrolyte packets now.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, like liquid IVs and stuff like that. And yeah, like we said, having your own little personal first aid kit is definitely like a must have. Having, even just your typical, Tylenol or some aspirin or some extra, maybe NyQuil or something, allergy medicines as well. Like you were saying, you can't help but, scratch your eyes because of the wind. But so it's definitely going to come down to a little bit more of the preventative care, because you don't have control over who's on the ship and stuff. Right. But as long as you set yourself up for success, you most likely, hopefully, shouldn't have an issue.
Yeah, I was going to mention those like liquid IV packets that you just stick in your bottle of water, shake it up, and you've got your electrolyte water. But try it ahead of time, because some of them taste really nasty. Some of them, like the throat won't open twice,
Oh, definitely. One thing, and I agree, especially I've tried so many different brands now, but some of them are like, especially salty, like just have that, salty taste. And I think they recommend, for the most part, to at least mix them with like 16 ounces. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I got to do more than that. And I just have to like drink it in shifts, or add some, water flavoring to it, kind of switch it up, maybe add even like some soda water to it, just to kind of trick my mind into thinking it's, a
soda
or something. Just a different kind of drink
in there. And another suggestion I have, I've been a long distance cyclist, and we would have, I would have a bottle of water and a bottle of electrolyte drink. Now, I only did half and half, water and electrolyte drink, because I didn't care for it, but some of them don't taste that badly. And so go to a bicycle shop and ask the workers there which are the mildest, which are the most popular, which ones are the ones that taste best. And they usually have little small travel to go packets. So just buy like one of a few and try them out. And then you can buy a jar or a canister that you can just scoop into your water, or you can buy a bunch of the packets, but they're more expensive. But you'll know that you're going to like it. You'll know that when the time comes that you need it, you're not going to be like, oh, I'd rather be dehydrated than drink it.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Because I can tell you, and I can't stomach a lot of those, I can tell you that some of them aren't as bad as the others. So By the way, thank you for listening to the Seize the Day podcast powered by Travel with Brigetta. We trust you found this content valuable. If you have a cruising topic that you would like to learn more about, please put it in the comments below so we can consider it for a future episode. On behalf of our entire Seize the Day and Travel with Brigetta team, we wish you a wonderful week. And until next time, seize the day.
You've been listening to the Seize the Day podcast, powered by Travel with Brigetta. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe. And as always, feel free to ask us anything in the comments section. We love to hear from you. Or email us at bookings@travelwithbrigetta.com. Till next time, seize the day.